Hey everyone, welcome to Founders 365 with me, Steven Haggerty. Today I'm joined by the co-founder of Volunteero, Mr. Ash Staines. How are you today, Ash?
Fantastic, thanks, Steve.
Good to have you on. And I always forget that when I just press live, the guest stream takes a little bit of time to catch up, so you were a bit blurry there, but you're all good now. So welcome to the show. And this is going to be an interesting one because Volunteero was built out of COVID, and you were doing things before that. So let's just start off with what Volunteero is today, and then we can go back in time and figure like the story out.
Absolutely. So Volunteero is a SaaS platform, and the aim is to help charities and volunteer organizations better manage their volunteer force. So the way it works is you have two-sided. It's a web portal that's used by charity. They can manage all aspects of their volunteer force. Tasks specifically, we actually call them missions. So missions that volunteers can go out and do. And volunteers, they use a mobile app to scroll through all these petitions that they can pick up, only find stuff that really works for them. You know, maybe they're great at talking to people, so they'll do some kind of befriending. So great. Or maybe actually they don't really like to speak to people, but they'd love to do something so they can go pick up some shopping. So the real focus behind Volunteero was to remove it, stop it being role-orientated volunteering, which creates a lot of barriers to entry for most people, flexibility, time management, that kind of stuff, and breaking all those roles down into tiny tasks that people can pick up in their own time, so everybody in theory can do something.
Yeah, almost like a volunteer as you go concept rather than a employee, because that's what you see with a lot of volunteer roles. You read about them and it does just sound like an employee job. This is, dedicating a lot of people's hours, and like you said, that's a high level to entry. For you though, what's interesting, like you just told me before we went live, this was formed because you struggled to find a volunteering position when you obviously wanted to go out there and help. So at what point did you think, I'm struggling to find a volunteering position, I can't find anything else in the marketplace that kind of fills the void that essentially solves your own problem? Then you thought, I'm going to be the one that creates Volunteero, which by the way sounds like a superhero name anyway.
Exactly.
You should have been wearing a cape, I think, for this interview.
I know. Look, I've been trying to push that on the co-founders. They're not quite as keen with me, but the full lycra getup.
Yeah, definitely.
Actually, everyone calls it Volunteero. Well, they think that's where we've gone with it, but no, it's obviously hero and volunteer. Actually, so what happened is I've volunteered in various kind of capacities in the past. And I was a volunteer. So the best kind of volunteering I found for me is what's called befriending. And the idea is that, there's somebody in need, isolated potentially within your community, and actually a regular phone call or a regular pop into the house or something like that really, really helps with their mental well-being. It's always a really good sort of early warning sign, somebody to talk to and listen to, really. Now, I was doing that for Age UK as a telephone befriender into lockdown. So I've been doing that for a while. Now, what actually happened was I said, I've got loads more time and I'm, really kind of bored doing nothing. Give me more people to befriend, because I knew they had a massive list of, 10,000 plus people waiting for this befriending service. So I said, can I do more? And the response, and this has been common across all charities really, is that we love that. That's really kind of you. But actually our staff are at capacity as to how many of those relationships they can manage and oversee. Wow. Right. And it kind of made wow was the response from me. I kind of sat there and thought, well, this is crazy. So you're telling me there's people out there that want to do stuff, but simply can't do it? Doesn't make too much sense to me. Now, as far as even though I've, started a venture before this, and I should really not fall into the traps of not doing your market research and all that kind of stuff. Truth be told with you, Stephen, I just wanted to make something, and I didn't really care whether something was out there because it was a nice project for me. So I didn't sit and go, An itch to scratch, exactly, mate. So I didn't spend loads of time going what's out there. I actually just said to my local region, didn't even go to any other charities, and just said, look, if I could build you something really easy where you could put those befriending relationships out there and your volunteers can pick as many up on an app as you like, would that suit you guys? And they were like, fantastic, that would be really cool for us. So I pretty much was just gonna get cracking. Now what it really became very clear to me is, yeah, I could use some outsourced engineers like I have in the past, put some of my own money into it and just give them this product and see whether they like it, like some kind of MVP. I was actually having my kind of monthly catch up with a guy that lives in Switzerland. His name's Luca. Now I've been trying to pitch him DoubleTapp and get him involved in my other business for a year and a half now. Now it's never been the right time for him for that. And we were just talking about this and he was like, dude, I befriend as well. I really want to be involved in this. Can I be a part of it? And he is a software engineer. He's a he's a part-time employee at Zurich Financial. And I said, great, this is amazing. Like, this is the dream, right? You want that CTO, engineering expertise in the business. I was like, and a guy that is passionate about it. Better still, he then went and pitched it to a friend of his who lives in the Netherlands. They went to university together. And that guy was also like, I love this. We've worked in the past together. I'm really great at web. You're great at mobile. Shall we do this? And so within the space of probably a 30-minute Zoom call, we were like, right, we're all in. Let's do this.
And I mean, that means you've never met your co-founders, which I think is I was going to say bizarre, but then also in current climate and current sort of the way people work is also very unsurprising. But how has it been for you to manage a relationship with co-founders that you have never met?
I wonder if they'll see this.
I'll tag them.
Yeah, exactly. So actually, all in all, like surprisingly positive, because I think, when people say things like, look, your co-founder is about as tight as your partner or other half is going to be, right? You're going to spend as much time speaking to them as you are your partner or other half. And it's very true. So, I mean, at first, we were just super excited. Then I think the first couple of weeks were like starting to figure each other out a little bit more and kind of teething issues. Now, I think the biggest thing is learning how people approach things, how they speak, how they work, right? One person might be incredibly blunt and you actually at the start take that as maybe like, you're all sensitive about it and you think, oh, they
take it to heart.
You do, exactly. But, as time kind of goes by, you start to understand that if that person was blunt on Slack or WhatsApp or whatever it might be, that wasn't them being blunt. That's just that's
just who they are.
That's who they are. That's how they function. But I mean, a good anecdote to say that kind of like trust was an initial focus. We had to set up a business, right? We had to incorporate the business in the UK. And therefore I needed various details from my two co-founders who would be directors. And one of them actually, Kedar, actually, in total fairness to him, was like, when I first asked for a PDF of his passport, he was like, I'm not sure how comfortable I feel about that. And actually, you know what? He met this guy like 2 days ago and he's asking for his passport details, bank details, all of this other stuff. I can totally understand it, but that just gives 100%. You a kind of feel for where you start in this kind of frosty, I don't know this person, and now we've done something huge. And especially as you also hear about so much of these, like, co-founder relationships that end in tears, right? Like how many of them end in divorce and all the things that, happened at the start that led to that kind of ending in that relationship. So it was difficult to start, but to be honest with you, I think we've got to a really good point now, actually, where we seem to all know how each other work, and we're kind of really super flexible about it as well. Because as you can imagine, we've all got various of our other responsibilities going on. So it's kind of just working out, okay, well, what's everybody doing at any given time? Where are we at? It's just about transparency as well,
I mean, what's clear and so great about that relationship is that, like you said, the story of how it came about in that initial Zoom meeting, you all very quickly had that common value, that common interest, and that common problem that you wanted to solve, right? how, if we talk about the growth, then obviously it's still such a new business, but in this, it's really weird because it's a very new business, but in the current situation, it's kind of like already halfway through its life cycle in terms of its current form, right?
Yeah.
So how has the growth been, and how was the reception? Obviously, you reached out to your local community. They were like, yeah, we would use it. You found your two co-founders. You guys got to work. How was that from when you got to work to sort of the initial launch, first couple of interactions with usage on the app? How was that process for you guys, and did you learn anything that you perhaps weren't expecting from that?
This actually goes a bit back to the relationship side of it as well, and this was interesting, right? So I've now done, started one venture, okay, and my natural instinct is to kind of swing for the fences at all times. Now for my two co-founders, this is their first business, separate business that they're starting. So and they're quite, I don't want to say traditional engineering because I don't want to kind of put,
I mean, you just did.
Put people, I did, didn't I? They're engineers, man. Like, they're legends.
They're very smart individuals.
Very smart individuals, but they're super perfectionists, like insane. They spot every little mistake I've ever made, and it starts to embarrass me after a while. But they're super, super focused. Now, so I was in an instance where I was like, I'm the business facing side of it. Can I just go and get as many charities on this thing for free as possible to start with? Whereas their view was like, I would rather have one tighter relationship where we really service that person well. We don't overstretch ourselves from a support standpoint and, upset people.
Iron out all the creases.
Exactly. I think their kind of point was like, you don't want 50% of those charities you get on board to kind of go away with a semi-bad experience and 50% with no K1. Why not just get one with an amazing experience? Now, interestingly, that's worked out really well. So we actually ended up not using the charity that I volunteer for. It's another region of that charity in Gateshead. So it's Age UK in Gateshead. Now, they ended up being the guys that we agreed to do an exclusive pilot with, and we'd be totally focused on them. And I'm not going to lie, sometimes you got to eat humble pie, because they were totally right, because that relationship that we've built now has led us into, we've got group demos with all the councils around that area, like Tyneside, Gateshead. And why is that? Because those guys have just gone and talked us up everywhere, because we gave them that super 100% focused approach. So I mean, how's the experience been to start with? I mean, there's been the classic launching of any kind of tech business that has users involved in it, right? Like, we're all excited. We've focused on this thing for dedicated just 2 months totally to this. We think we thought about everything to start with. The first 5 volunteers that tried to sign in, 3 of them can't sign in because they put typos in their emails. Now, the interesting thing it was like they put typos in their emails, but we put a tick next to that sign-in box to say it does look like a correct email to us because it's formatted, right? Because
it's got the @gmail.com.
Exactly. But it actually turned out to be like @yahoo.co.ul was what they'd put. But because they see the tick that says it's actually formatted like a correct email, they told us it was our problem. And, it was that kind of classic, super hyped about that first minute, and it was like, well, so far it's gone all totally wrong.
You're super hyped, and then you just see your email pop up at support@volunteero.com, and you're like, oh god.
We thought we wouldn't get a first support email for 6 months. We thought it was going to be smooth sailing, and we hadn't even figured out who was support, to be honest.
Just going for it. It's that mix of getting that perfection, but you still, I guess, have to launch something, because this is what I find when I obviously spoke to a lot of founders, and when you've got more technical founders and more social founders or commercial founders, you've got that sort of argument with each other. Not argument, but that's probably the best word to describe it, in terms of, like you said, the technical founders are very perfectionist typically. They want to get it right. They want to iron out all those creases. Then you've got the commercial founders who are just, like you said, let's get this out there. Let's test it in the market and see if we sink or swim. But it sounds like you guys found that middle ground, which worked excellently, because like you said, people are now coming to you. There's conversations happening, which is all really great. I wanted to talk about, obviously you mentioned a couple of times DoubleTapp, the previous venture, but I don't want to say previous because is it just on hold at the moment? What's it stand?
Yeah, so the story of kind of DoubleTapp, and I guess a bit of my background. So I worked in investment banking for about 5 years, and then in a hedge fund. So I started at Goldman Sachs, went to a small hedge fund. Now I always say that's kind of where my drive to actually go into launching a business came from, because in the hedge fund, I got to spend a load of time going to these public offering meetings where, you know, the road show happens. It's the founder of DocuSign or whatever business it might be that week that's going around the country, and you sit there, have a nice lunch, but you don't eat any of it because you have to write down those notes. But yeah, you don't eat any of it.
You're not bitter about that at all.
I am bitter about it because I was like the youngest guy there, and I'm like trying to be cool. Flicking peas off my plate and stuff like that, you know. So
it's just the education of it, man.
I couldn't enjoy it, man. I won't lie to you. I couldn't eat anything. But so it was there that it kind of became a bit more clear to me. You know, like I think you get in your head, you see like, you know, a Jobs or a Zuckerberg or something like that, and you've got this idea that they're these type A's, but they're also potentially in their parents' basement coding away or something. Yeah. You're like, well, that's just not me. Now
it's like the Hollywood story.
The Hollywood story, and you think that's how it is. So you're like, okay, that'll never be me. I'm just this is the route I'm going to take. But like more than 50% of them had like a totally normal, relatable story, and they're often not technical. And actually, they just had an idea like anybody else. They had a problem. They were like, this could work, and they went and started, right, 0 to 1. So that got my head going. So the next idea that I had, I was like, right, I'm going to commit to this. And that next idea was DoubleTapp. So DoubleTapp, the concept was basically I was spending time, you know, scrolling through Instagram and seeing all these influencers posts, right? And I was like, I don't know how anyone else feels about influencers, but I'll be candid, it just bugs me. It bugs me because I'm like,
you need to listen to yesterday's podcast where I had the founder of an influencer agency, but it was fantastic. Like her view on influencers is exactly what it should be, you know, moral, ethical, all that kind of stuff.
Well, you know what? Then there won't be any online beef between us.
No, you and Natalia won't be like hashing it out in the chat.
Exactly. I think we're banging in line then. So because most influencers don't follow that moral approach, they don't pitch stuff that they truly believe in. I was kind of scrolling through endless ones, and I was like, none of that's going to make me buy it. I'm not going to buy that. I'm not going to buy that teeth whitening kit. I'm not going to buy that thing, right? So, but then I was also scrolling through, and it was like, oh, those trainers that Dan's wearing are really cool, or that, you know. And I was kind of suddenly it dawned on me. I was like, well, everything like my friends put out there does change my consumer behavior, but everything influencers doesn't. That doesn't make sense, given there's, you know, the influencer market is like $8 billion and growing fast. It just doesn't add up. So I said, okay, what if you could do something whereby a business could really seamlessly and automatically incentivize and reward customers for posting about them on social? Normal people, not influencers, but normal people. And it was that idea that I went and pursued. So I started, sole founder, outsourced development team, the usual crack, and we started DoubleTapp, which basically means that a bar or a restaurant can offer you like free drinks, food, whatever it might be, if you post a picture about them or inside their venue on social media. The app tracks their post, it tracks their tags, it makes sure they've done everything that business wants from them. And once they've done that, it delivers them with a reward. They go back in, they get their 2 free cocktails.
Amazing. Such a simple idea as well, which I love.
Yeah, well, exactly. That was the dream. Now, I mean, I'll tell you about the problems we face, but it'd be the same as so many of your founders and so many founders out there. But anyway, so before COVID, we got to a stage where I'd raised some SEIS money, so about 150 grand. We had launched. I had in one city, which was just Sheffield, where I used to go to university, and got 10,000 downloads, about 60 bars on there, and paying, and a few names like Revolutions, Domino's, Pizza Group, and things like that. But then COVID hit, right? And every one of them emailed me within a week or so and said, Ash, sorry, you know.
The hospitality industry took a little bit of a hit.
Yeah, I did hear that, actually.
Yeah, I've heard the rumours.
Yeah, I did. But yeah, so unfortunately, that took a massive backseat. Now, I won't lie to you, at that point, because it was at the point where I was using that traction to actually raise a bit of decent money and then expand things and grow a team, I was kind of down in the dumps, really.
Yeah.
I was having to have pretty, those horrible conversations you never hoped you'd have with investors. And let's be honest, those investors at that time aren't, big cheeses with massive pockets and stuff like that. They're people you know, right? And it's horrible. It was honestly it was taking me a while to get over that guilt complex.
How did you bounce back from that though? Because I can imagine, when those emails from those hospitality industries started to come in my head, it's probably a bit like the world is crashing down. And a lot of people will probably go, you know what, well, screw this. I'm just gonna sack it off. I'm gonna leave it off. I'm gonna, go back to my normal job because this venture hasn't quite worked. But we're sat here today. You chose to go. Actually, I've still got more in me. I've still got another thing, or I've still got that little energy. Obviously, it's that entrepreneurial itch that we all have as founders. But what was it? At what moment did you kind of make that decision to go, you know what, I'm gonna be all right. I'm gonna get through this.
You know what? Again, it was just like my sort of family and support network, and I feel founders and stuff that haven't got that around them, like, oh my god, they're extraordinary people, because I'm lucky enough to have that, and everybody picks me up off the ground. So I'm there saying I just feel so bad for these these investors, and I've got no money to do anything else. I don't know what to do. And they're like, and actually even my investors were amazing. They were just like, Ash, you're having the toughest time, man. It really for you, like, don't worry about us, you just do you. And I was like, when you have that kind of thing, you can't help but be like, what legends. Like, if I suppose anything in my power.
The benefit of that was that everyone was kind of going through the same thing.
Yeah.
It wasn't any fault of your own. It wasn't because the product was crap or anything like that. It was something completely out of your control, out of everyone's control, which obviously breeds much more empathy than probably normal times.
Definitely. But I think it was that point actually when, I'd spoken to a couple of investors, and I was just like, these guys are legends. And they were even like, look, we'll back you further if you need us to. And I'm thinking, like, you know what I mean? You almost wanted like tears.
Like, what? What? Did you just hear my conversation? Did you? Were you in there?
Exactly how I was feeling. So I was like, you know what? The other thing is, and we've got to give applause to the awesome UK government for this one. So I had applied for an Innovate grant before, and we knew we were a couple of % away at that time. And you're allowed to submit 2 applications basically. And so we were like, right, you know what? There is a potential lifeline out there, right? We were really close with an Innovate grant last time. Let's give it another whirl. So I spent a lot of time focusing on that grant, really investing my time into it, getting it polished, getting it perfect. And I put that out there, and I kind of just ignored it, forgot about it for a bit. Now, what I then went and did, as well as the volunteering thing, I kind of realized, okay, well, yeah, you're going to have to be able to feed yourself as well. So I started looking at contracting roles and stuff in banking. And honestly, look, maybe I'll have to go back to it one day. And I did love it when I was there, but it was, when you're sat there and just like, oh my God, I'm so not passionate about this. Like, this is going to give me that buzz that just having a new user gets.
It's like the potential end to a problem in terms of financially, but the soul within you is just going, what the hell are you doing, Ash? Do not do that. You don't have to do that. And you just said, maybe you'll have to do it one time, but you won't, because if you would have, if that's ever in your future, you would have done it now. Like, this is the time to do it. So you haven't done it now, so it's probably not in your future.
Exactly. You know what? You're spot on there, Steven. I think that this experience has told me this is for me. This really is for me. I haven't got quite as much of that imposter syndrome as maybe I had at the start. So I do feel more confident about it. And I also realize, you know what? If you do go back into it, there's only a couple of times you get a chance to break free of those golden handcuffs, right? And go back to like living on pot noodles and stuff like that. And because I've done it once, am I going to really want to do it again?
I mean, pot noodles really upped their game in recent years anyway, so you're okay.
Not even okay.
But let's talk about the future then. What is the future for Volunteero? Because obviously early stage, raised in or created in a climate that isn't normal at all. So for you guys, the three of you, what's the long-term plan? Where do you want to take Volunteero? Does it have a future in terms of, you know, when, I was going to say when COVID ends, but that's not the right way to say, but when sort of some sort of normality comes back to normal?
Well, look, to be honest with you, it's a difficult one because our product is needed now more than ever because the demand for these services of charities have increased. Their funding has dropped. They need to squeeze more out of every buck. Mm-hmm. Now, we know that's exactly what happens. For example, you know, our latest case study shows that, you know, you get about a 4 times productivity increase on your volunteers. Like, that's insane, right? Wow. That's free workforce. You're getting 4 times more from them use it. And also they're saving about half the amount of time managing volunteers their staff members are, right? So you can cut your, you know, or not cut your staff members down necessarily, but just be able to support more.
Have them working on things that matter more.
You've pretty much good. That's my one liner that I've put out there, mate. So yeah, thank you for that.
Stolen.
You're looking for a job, by any chance?
We'll talk after.
Yeah, exactly. So we're in a position where I know that it's needed most, but you know, most of them had their budgets slashed. So it's really hard to look big vision about it. So I think we need things to settle down for people to actually start more charities to start taking a look at it. That being said, we're probably onboarding 5 before Christmas, which will be great. But if I talk about the big vision, which is what excites me more than kind of just a nice little SaaS platform for charities or anything like that. No. So the big vision for us is that we think we can genuinely increase the rate of volunteering, you know, across the country, and then hopefully, you know, internationally as well. And the reason why is soon we think we'll get to a point where we have, you know, a critical mass of charities offering various cross-sector stuff, right? So we kind of got something for everybody and across various regions. At that point, we're then going to build the capability to support the registration of volunteers, right? Because at the moment, I don't know if you've ever tried to register as a volunteer for anything, but it took me 6 months. 6 months back and forth.
It's often a long application process.
Right.
But when I first started it, I was like you, I was like, oh, I just email them and they're just going to reply saying, hey, yeah, come in on Tuesday and do like a 2-hour shift.
Dude, exactly. Right. And isn't it nuts that you can get a bank account in 2 minutes now and you can't volunteer in under 3 months? It's just nuts.
It's just bizarre.
So where we are is once we can support that registration, I think where we'd love to be at is then go, because at the moment we're not like a public platform. If you're a volunteer, you can't just download Volunteero and get cracking. But we will be at a point when we can then do the registration for those charities of new volunteers. Then we can also, then we might look to do something like a raise, because we'd look to have a marketing budget and actually push this out far and wide, because somebody can come on in a totally unique manner. Somebody can go, oh, I heard about that Volunteero, I'm going to download it, and I could just beforehand, I can see, great, I could do shopping for her down the road. I'm a marketer, and actually this charity just needs an hour's worth of marketing advice. Like, there could be everything you could possibly think about, right? And I could do dog walking for that person. So you could sit there and go, great, those 3 charities have got stuff that I want. Register in one click, you know, one quick 2-minute application form that you find out in 2 weeks, and you start volunteering and you pick up and drop off. Now, I mean, if that doesn't satisfy a bunch of people out there that want to volunteer but can't, I mean, I'll eat my hat. So, so I really believe that that's the future for Volunteero, is to actually be able to go, you know, push the.
It makes perfect sense. It really does, because, you know, I've faced the problem, you faced the problem. If me and you have faced the problem, thousands of people are facing these problems. And, you know, it's not just now that I think volunteering is on the forefront of people's minds. I think it will be something that is more pushed for the future anyway. And having a marketplace, like you said, that can link up sort of across the board, not just focusing on, like you said, helping someone with their shopping, but helping, you know, an hour of marketing time, that kind of thing, is where that sweet spot is. So it is super exciting to be able to speak to you at 2-3 months in, and now just be able to watch Volunteero journey grow. And to be honest, I am waiting for that photo of the 3 founders with capes in the proper superhero outfit. It has to be done when you get that marketing budget.
Steven, I told you they're engineers. Okay, do you really think they're going to be strapping on?
But you could, okay, so you have the cape, and then you're stood on the desk, and they're at the computers. There we go. That's the image.
Yeah, now they're sidekicks. How do you think they're going to take that?
Yeah, well, I'm definitely sending this to them now then. But Ash, listen, my final question to you is, I know you said it's not a public platform yet, but how can people follow Volunteero? How can people sort of get ready to be involved when you guys expand and get to that national size?
Yeah, perfect. Well, look, guys, we jump onto our website, just submit your interest there, because we're constantly sending out newsletters and saying how you can get involved. Now, even though you might not be able to get involved by submitting your registration to Volunteero yet, soon we will have, you know, probably 10, 20, 30 charities. You can go separately to them, register, and then you'll be put onto Volunteero yourself. So either submit through the website. We're on all the various socials it's at Volunteero app. Please do go ahead and follow us wherever, LinkedIn, Instagram, and we're constantly posting on Instagram. By the way, we're always posting. We do a weekly volunteer interview, so we call it the Volunteero of the Week. And honestly, the stories are class. Like, it just shows that anyone can volunteer, and it also shows the difference it can make.
Yeah, well done, man. Kudos to you. And like I said, I look forward to watching the growth of Volunteero. But until then, thank you so much for being a guest on here, Founders 365.
Pleasure. Thanks, Steven. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Thanks everyone else for listening and watching. This has been Founders 365.